Good evening. I'd like to call to order regular scheduled meeting, Elk Grove Park District Board, January 9th, 2020. Can I get a roll call, please?
President Walls.
Here?
Commissioner O'Malley.
Here.
Commissioner Cook.
Here.
Commissioner Biecki.
Here.
Commissioner Sauter.
Here.
Okay, next agenda item is off a script, and you'll see why. So the next agenda item for the Board of Park Commissioners is a public hearing pursuant to the provisions of a Bond Issue Notification Act to receive public comments on the proposal to sell not to exceed $2,500,000 in general obligation limited tax park bonds. May I have a motion to proceed to the public hearing and continue other business of the regular meeting upon conclusion thereof?
I so move. I second that motion.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we open the public hearing to continue with other business of the regular meeting upon the conclusion of the public hearing. Is there any discussion? Seeing, hearing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes.
Commissioner Cook.
Here.
Commissioner Biecki.
Yes.
Commissioner Sauter.
Yes.
President Walls.
Yes. The reasons for proposed issuance of the bonds are for the payment of land condemned or purchased for parks, for the building, maintaining, improving, and protecting of the same and the existing land and facilities of the district, and for the payment of the expenses incident thereto. Do any of the commissioners wish to make any comments regarding the proposed bond issue? Do any of the commissioners wish to submit in written testimony concerning the proposed bond issuance of the bonds? Does any of the public wish to present oral testimony or any public comments concerning the proposed issuance of the bonds? Does any of the public wish to present written testimony with respect to the proposed issuance of bonds? All persons desiring to be heard have been given an opportunity to present oral and written testimony with respect to the proposed issuance of the park improvement bonds. May I please have a motion to finally adjourn this public hearing?
I move to finally adjourn the public hearing.
I second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that the public hearing be finally adjourned. Is there any discussion? Will the secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Cook.
Yes.
Commissioner Biecki.
Yes.
Commissioner Sauter.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes.
President Walls.
The motion is carried and the hearing is finally adjourned. We will now proceed to the next agenda item. The next agenda item is approval of minutes. December 12th, 2019 Committee of the Whole and December 12th, 2019 regular meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye as well. Okay, we'll move to public communication. Any comments from the audience? Step right up to that microphone there if you could.
Good evening. I'm Gary Biskowski. I've been a resident of Elk Grove Park District for 42 years. I think most of you know who I am. Over the course of 42 years, I've worked in the Park District arena. A lot of the facilities here were built under my direction. So I come before you with a love for this park district, for this community, and extensive experience in dealing with infrastructure improvements and facilities. Unfortunately, last night I was unable to attend the golf course open house to discuss your proposal for the clubhouse and maintenance facility. I got wind of this from my neighbor who asked, why is the park district tearing down the clubhouse? Why are they tearing down the maintenance building and going to rebuild it? And I was at awe. I did not have, they thought I still worked for the park district, which happens often. They say, what do you do? I work for another agency. I don't work for that park district anymore. So they think I'm like the guy that's heading up this whole effort. And I come before you because I love the park district. I understand the park district. I worked for government for 40 years. And I come before you to ask you some questions. And I come from the outside because I didn't attend last night's meeting. So I don't know your full plans, the full costs. And I would hope that some of the questions that I ask, you've answered or had answered by your staff or your consultants. Or some of the questions and comments that I make might in fact be questions that you would say, well, wait a minute, we haven't thought about that. Or what is that really the true, is that true, or does it impact what Gary Buskowski has said and what I believe other residents will say in this community? So after 40 years of dealing with residents, I get the pulse of some of those residents and how they react. Back in 1978, then Mayor Charlie Zedek came to me in my interview process and said, Gary, if you come to Elk Grove, I can promise you your dreams of building will never be limited by resources. Elk Grove will always have the money to do what you want to do. And that's appropriate in this discussion because I think the resources are there. In working for government for 40 years, there's always this feeling, well, the money's there, we can spend it. You know, if we don't spend the money, they're going to take it away from us. I understand that, and that's something that I think that the politicians need to understand in the decision-making process. I came here on Charlie Zedek's comment and worked for a guy who had bigger dreams and aspirations than I did, Jack Clays. But I can tell you, working for that guy for 17 years, and there may be some disagreement as to what he thought values was important to the community, but he always stressed that we were just caretakers of someone else's assets. The money wasn't really ours to spend, and that a line item is not a license to spend. And I can say this to the day he retired. That guy went through every invoice that this park district paid, and he put JAC on it. And I don't know how many times I got called into his office and asked, what the H is this? If this was your money coming from your pocket, would you spend that? And that really instilled in me the appreciation of at least looking at it and saying, what is the return on investment? Is it really going to provide something to the community? I don't believe bricks and mortar. I came out as a landscape architect and discovered that these four walls are nothing without the programming aspects. So by tearing down these four walls, it's not going to make this operation any better. It's the people within it. It may make it more efficient, but it's not going to change what's happening, in this space. I can only guess at this point because I didn't hear what the budget is, but let's say you're talking about $8 to $10 million.
You're right there. That's about what the budget is.
And when I look at that from the outside point of view, and what is the value added? $8 to $10 million equates to assuming AAA bonding at today's rate of 1.8% over 20 years is $536,000 a year debt service.
Well, we can attest to the questions that you have. So the budget process is obviously the first one. And then what other questions do you have? And
Well,
we'll
I'm
address
just
them.
saying that in my mind, have you asked the golfers? Have you asked the golfing community that when you make these improvements, are they going to see $536,000 worth of value added to that experience?
Well,
Oh,
I can come to that a little bit in the beginning I've been on the board a few years. There's definitely some people that have been on the board longer, but the question has always been brought up about the golf course. When it was doing well, when it wasn't doing well, when we had low years, is do we need a golf course? And correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but it was, okay, this is a community-wide thing. It falls under the arm of the Park District. But do we take away the golf course, and what does that do to the community? So any commissioners can talk about it, but for me it definitely adds to the community. There's a lot of communities that don't have golf courses, and we get a lot of those community people from Itasca, Wooddale, and whatnot, that come to our course and use it. So I believe with all the other parks that you fully are aware of, CAF and whatever, that is a piece of our pie, so to speak. And I believe it to be an important piece, personally.
And I appreciate this dialogue because this is somewhat unique. Most boards will say, speak, and then we'll take it under advisement. You know, we'll have this back and forth conversation, and I can
Right.
assure you, we're not gonna go back and forth tit for tat, because that's not what my intent is.
No,
I've been on that side when I would love to argue with
If
that
you want
resident and say,
information-
you are full of shit.
If you want information, we'll give you information.
You gotta believe that.
You know, and believe me when I say, I am not against the golf course.
Yeah, right.
I am not against, you know, a clubhouse. I'm just saying, what is the value there? And if you were to ask the golfer, let's say, go back to your pocket and say to the golfer, and say, hey, we're gonna raise your rates by $13 a round, assuming $40,000. Would the golfer say, well, yeah, that was value, I have no problem with that?
And partly to that point is, I was just talking to Commissioner O'Malley about it at the committee of the whole, is the fact that our original clubhouse was built, and I want to say 83, opened in 84. Okay.
I can tell you that's, it's right on.
You've been a resident a long time, and I'm sure you remember what used to be Nordic Hills, and it was that design, that octagonal design, right? That building is in disrepair. There's no question. If we were not to do this project, and there's probably estimates that can back me up if anybody wants to ask, but the roof at least is $500,000. The rooftop units, the air conditioning. So that's kind of what kicked us to that point. The real driving force, oddly enough, was the maintenance facility. The equipment that they need now is so much larger than what we could get away with 20 years ago, that Jeremy, our maintenance manager, or superintendent of maintenance, if that's his term, he's running out of space. We have equipment and carts outside. It just wasn't conducive to run the course the way this board and staff wanted to run it. That's really what drove the original, what would say, Bill, 3 years ago we started talking about?
Well, no, since I've been on the board. it's been-
That was 10 to 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I you know, and by you starting the meeting late, I was able to write down
Yes.
some notes here
Sorry about
and crunch some numbers. That's not a problem, but once again, I understand that. I've been in your staff's shoes, because I used to go through it with the maintenance guys, the vehicle maintenance guys. They wanted new equipment every year, because then they wouldn't have to maintain it.
Just quickly to your point, and I wanted to finish this. Our original maintenance, or Jeremy wanted about 12,000 square feet, roughly. Fair or not fair. We definitely pared that down. So what is he at currently on the last proposal? He's at 7,500 feet. So after he came to us with all the spitballing and what should we do, you know, we've cut that in half, really. So back to your point is, we are being stewards of everybody else's money.
Well,
We feel we have to do it.
And I'm not going to go, as I say, argue back and forth, but.
No,
you know,
I don't consider this an
even-
argument at all.
And
At all.
if one were to look at that maintenance building as it now exists, and you go back to that $536,000 a year, that equates to, assuming 210 days of golf operation, to $2,553 per day of inefficiency that it's going to cost you. Who on your staff would say, we're going to be $2,553 a day more efficient because you're spending $9 million? So I want a brand new car. My wife wants a brand new car, and she wants it with all the bells and whistles. And I look at it and say, what's the value of that bells and whistles? Yes, it has this and that, and you have to make that decision. And I'm not here to say you're wrong in that, but I'm just asking, you need to think about it in the terms that I see it, because I'm also going to go back down to a personal matter. a home matter at the bottom of this. And I'm not against golf. I'm not against spending money.
I'm a math guy too. I take everything down to the math,
Okay.
and I get exactly what you're saying.
And what I would propose to you is, have you considered spending $3 million or $2 million, looking at the difference of what that $2 million is going to cost you, because you do need to put a new roof on, you need to put a new HVAC system, there may be a new roof on that maintenance building. And the question as I speak about the maintenance building, a little sidetracked, I apologize, is have you asked staff how many golf courses in northern Illinois operate out of similar type facilities? Because when you look at a Butler building or a Steel building, which that is, it is one of the most efficient and long-lasting buildings on the market. When you think about it, I assume you're going to mimic the new maintenance garage after your clubhouse with a flat roof.
Yeah. Currently, that's the design.
Have
That's about
you-
all that's going to be simulated.
It's not going to be flat, but it's going to have an
Yes.
EPDM roof on top.
Yes.
Okay. Have you looked at what the life cycle of that new roof is going to be? Think about that clubhouse, which you said was built in way back there 35 years ago. How much money has gone into that outer shell of that clubhouse structure? Today's metal structure buildings with a good metal structure can get a 40-year warranty.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Tim, you can help me out here too. It is a metal roof over the entire structure.
Oh, it is. It is. And what I'm
I'm
saying
on the new design,
it's going to be a metal roof on,
Yes.
on the flat top
on
roof?
both structures, the clubhouse
So there
and
is
the
no
maintenance.
EPDM roof on there? Okay.
Right.
I'll take that back then. So if you got a metal roof on there, great, because I would say, hey,
Scary similar to camp. We went with the metal roof because of the
Right.
longevity.
sure, okay, then you've got that. Okay,
We don't
so
want to touch those buildings.
the building you have right now has that, and everyone says, well, it's a cheap-ass building. Well, it's not. It's an efficient building. It's not a beautiful-looking building, a quality building, and insulation-wise. So tearing that down for the sake of that and just not, replacing the roof, upgrading, what you
Right.
have now,
Right.
for $2 million. I would say, hey, take the difference of $417,000 a year and put it into programming.
Do you mean programming for the course or for the entire park district?
Put it in for the course, do it for whatever you want. I'm saying that, hey, spend it on this, and you get, all you get is that. But if you
I
were to
see what
take
you're
the
saying, right, right.
$417,000 and put it into programming that could run very inexpensive programs for golf, for youth, for ethnic diversity programs, you have a problem. I can tell you, I don't have to tell you, golf is a dying business. And the reason with golf is it takes too long. And people don't have time today to make that commitment. The market is getting smaller and smaller because our time is not going to go to something that takes 6 hours that you have to do 7 times a month to get good and satisfied so you don't hit the ball into the drink every day. That's the problem with golf. It's a struggle. But golf is an important part of the community for a special group. I realize that. So I am not coming here saying I want the money back in my taxes. Golf should not be because it's subsidized. It's a question of what improvement you're making
Understood.
and what is you're getting in return. Now, one of the things you might say, and this goes back to, I didn't make an earlier comment on your issuance of bonds. You could take that $417,000, and I know you can't take it from the capital fund. But many years ago, the board took the money in the general fund for capital and promised the community that they would not revert back to borrowing. I think that $417,000, if you were to take that path of just taking what you have, making it better, improving it to today,
Standards.
usable standards, configure some of it. If the bar's in the wrong spot in the middle, tear that out.
throw another $500,000 in there and value engineer that to say, what's the greatest return? Food and beverage operation is not going to make you any money. If you think that you're going to build a new facility, and if you were to take that $536,000 and divide it by 365 days, and you attributed 2/3 of that, $468 a day, to golf, you would end up with the winter programming cost of $489 a day. Every day, 7 days a week, to pay back that loan commitment. Someone's paying for that. Now, you may run great programs in the recreational value. You may say, hey, those programs are worth $489 a day, every day, Christmas Day, every day, New Year's Day, and so on. So that's a pretty big nut to crack. So I implore you to think in those terms. And the reason why I think you need to really consider this, and this comes to my personal. Anybody who's lives in Elk Grove or in northern Cook County received one of these. This is the new assessment from the assessor. In my situation, my property assessment went up 38%. I know, I've been in park districts, and because of the EAV, I could walk around as you can walk around and say, we have one of the lowest tax rates in the area. We're very prudent with your tax dollars. But at the end of the day, that 38% increase is going to amount to $2,380 next year of additional tax I'm going to pay. My tax bill from 2018 says, of the tax bill that I'm going to pay, 8.15% is park district tax. So I'm going to be paying a little bit more, not as much as I'm going to be paying to the school district, but it's going up. And my tolerance for the love of the park district and what it does and the value added is going to be questioned when I make that payment to the Cook County. And it's $2,368. And with the thought in mind that I may or may not think the Park District Board is acting in my best interest in a way that is getting the highest return for those dollars that I'm paying. I calculated it out, and your accountants and everybody else will say, hey, this is what our tax rate and so on and so forth is. In 2008, I paid $347 to the Park District.
What year?
2008.
Well, we do know
In
everybody's.
2018, my tax bill was $509. That's an increase of $162 or 46.83%. So I look at that and say, right now, I say, that's okay, because I see value. I think the Park District, there are things I could question, but overall, you're doing a great job.
Well, I appreciate that.
I really do, and I don't argue about that. Come March, when I write that $2,300 check, I may have a different idea.
That's fair
as my neighbors will have,
As we will too.
as everyone does.
As commissioners and staff that live here, everybody. I'm with you.
I understand that. But I think that, a lot of times as I go back to Charlie Zedek's, we look at this big picture and we become callous to the numbers. It's $9 million. It's $536,000 a year to the
Understood.
golf course. So I appreciate you. If you need, I offer myself as a resident at no charge. If you want to bounce something off of me or whatever, I know that Ben and I, we've met many times in meetings, and I'm not against the Park District. I just, other than once before with the dog park in the floodplain.
Gary, while you're on air, explain to me where you get the $536,000 though, because I don't even know where you're coming up with that number.
Well, what I do is I just took and looked at the debt, okay, $9 million, you'll pay $1,723,600 66 and change back and forth. That's assuming the rate of 1.8,
Okay.
okay? And then divide that by 20 years.
Roughly close?
1.8%, yes,
Okay.
is accurate.
Yeah, so if I just look at that, now I understand bonding is not gonna work that way. What you're going to do is not gonna hit, next year or the year after. It's gonna be little increments down the road. But if you looked at the real cost over 20 years, okay, every year, that's what you would have to
What's the
throw into.
opportunity cost per year if we were to not do the project? I think.
Can I step in real quick? So right now, our current financing plan, we're only planning on borrowing $6.5 million, and it'll be paid back over 6 years.
And that's fine, whatever that is. Okay, so the numbers would change. As long as you look at it from the perspective of what the value is, and if you looked at it, broken it down into, say, 40,000 rounds of golf, I don't know what you're doing, is what is it, and how much is that worth to the golfer? Is the course going to be better? Is the efficiencies going to be any greater as a result of that? At $2,500 a day to move golf carts in and out is not necessarily a thing you want to do. But you have to look at it and say, well, hey, if I can move those carts out for $1,000 a day, I'm $1,500 ahead. That's the way business would look at it. And I say business because government, sometimes we just look at the big numbers and throw numbers at it and we say, well, we can be more efficient. We can put a new building in there, we're going to sell beer.
Well, and Gary, I just wanted to say, just from a sort of philosophical standpoint, first of all, we never look at things, well, we got the money, let's spend it, because for one, Commissioner O'Malley would never let that fly. Neither would I don't think any of us do that. We started with a more fundamental question. We're gonna have a golf course, or we're gonna have the world's biggest dog park? There's nothing else you can do on that property, it's floodplain, right?
Once again, and let's go back.
I'm just gonna take you through real quickly through the whole thing. So once we got, we're gonna have a golf course, then we had to address, and as Tom mentioned, for pretty much since I've been on the board, we've been talking about that our maintenance facility needs to be upgraded, not just made bigger, not just made better. We're talking like it's gonna fall apart. We've got maybe another 2-3 years. We've been saying we got another 2-3 years for about 10 years. Yeah, 10, 15 years. We finally got to the point where, okay, we're gonna do the maintenance facility. It started with just that, and we had a bunch of different options. One would have encroached too much on the local neighborhood. We had another option where we were just gonna completely leave the clubhouse alone and just do that footprint. And as we kind of went through this thing, we realized, okay, we're gonna spend this much money on a maintenance facility that we've needed for 15 years. What happens to the clubhouse? We need at least $1 million to address the issues Commissioner Walls had mentioned, the roofs, the HVAC, the windows, everything. Fixtures, fittings, everything was gonna be over $1 million. So it wasn't like we just carte blanche said, okay, we're gonna throw 8 to 10 million at this. We're already gonna commit some dollars to the maintenance facility. And oh, by the way, we've got an opportunity right now to do the whole thing in a much more efficient way. Actually add more usable space than we have right now, because I don't know if you go over there or not. We've got that one octagonal room, and then a hallway, the kitchen, the bar, and a real short gap to the window. Now this is gonna be configured so that it's all more user-friendly, usable, and in terms of trying to get some of the payback over the years by programming outside the golf season, we've also incorporated golf simulators. They've got bag leagues going on right now.
Back to your programming, we're trying to
Yeah.
program it 12
Yeah.
months. And actually, we already are.
And there's a lot of,
Right.
I've been in, I've just completed a big project up, or it's a small project compared to this up in Lake Bluff, where they were gonna close the golf course up there. So the dilemma of golf and what to do and close the course, and, all those things are great, but I would caution you as a board, okay? And I would ask this question once again. Tom, can you come up with $489 a day in additional programming? And would you be willing to make that part of your performance package? It's your money, Because I can tell you, you can do all kinds of things. You can sell burgers all night long and whatever. Show me the money, you know, when it comes down to it. So, yeah, I've heard that. But I'll say that Elk Grove's water isn't the magic bullet. Every golf course around here is trying to do that. So you have to look at that sweet spot before, you know, to see how much are you going to invest to get that return. And you spend a lot of money in the fitness center. How's that working out? It's updated. The problem is that what the market is? Are you serving the market? Bricks and mortar is not the solution. Not necessarily the solution. And I'll say, maybe there's a hybrid, because I would have to think that for $1 million, you could rip that building down and replace that building for $1 million.
Yeah.
That means,
I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I really do.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't agree.
But that would.
No, I'm just saying replace it with another steel building.
Just price per square foot, that wouldn't work, because there's different rules and regulations now. We have a gas tank out there that has to be, once you touch it, you gotta get rid of it. There's just so much more to it. I understand what you're saying.
And there's.
And as far as being the first of the parade, we're actually the last of the parade of renovating a golf course. Mount Prospect, in my mind, probably started it off about 5-6 years ago. Arlington Lakes, which is close to us. Poplar Creek, which is close to us. And they're successful. Schaumburg just did it.
Not the
You know.
great, I did it.
Yeah, right.
So
So,
I
we're
understand that.
we're not blazing a trail of being the first to do a renovation.
I-
If anything, we've been ultra conservative, I think.
Oh, and rightfully so. Golf is a special interest operation.
It
And
is.
you went to the
It's not for
priorities and you
everybody,
said,
clearly.
what is best for the community, and I applaud you for that. When you put your money
Yeah.
where you're gonna get the biggest bang for your buck from a recreational service ability, you've done well in that. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that what you're doing is wrong. I'm just saying that it seems like the return on investment is going to be questionable, and do you need to spend all that money? Is there another way that you can better the golf course operation by using that funds, at least for, whatever that period of time is? The numbers change at 6 years, because after 6 years, you run out of money, because the assumption that you have it there. Also, retirement is going to be much higher on a 6-year basis. So 536 is going to be way much higher to return that debt. Your interest rate's down, but it's a much more higher yearly hit to that course. Someone said we have to, if we don't do something in the clubhouse, the golf course is going to go away. When Lou Smith proposed to build the golf course, he beat Joe Luciani and Centex Homes out of land. That's why there's not much land in there, because it was originally a 9-hole golf course. And he wanted to build an 18-hole golf course. And we were going to run the golf course operation out of a trailer. I would say to you, you're a golf guy, so I'm coming from a business planning guy. Tear it down and put a double wide out there. Take the $536,000, drop your rates by $13, and you'll have a problem maintaining that golf course, because people will they're not coming for your golf, they're coming for golf. The vast majority of your customer is about golf. There may be some that want to buy clubs, that want to have a beer afterwards, that may want to get some expertise and so on and so forth. But they're there to play golf, their golf course. And I'm not saying that a trailer is the answer, but don't think that changing the bricks and mortar is going to make that course. If it does, gosh, I'll come back here and say I was wrong.
Well, I appreciate your insight, and I know the rest of the board does.
Thank you.
We do have quite a few more meetings on this thing.
I hope you
Because we're in
just
the
think about
conceptual
that.
design still, so,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to hear you want to add a couple of things that you mentioned. That, when we do look at these things, we have a facility that we currently have that we have to maintain as part of our obligation if we decide to be in that business and continue to provide that service, we have to maintain those facilities. So, looking at it, and we're all taxpayers too, so I got the same hit you got, and I feel pain every time I vote on something. we raised that question, how's it gonna affect the tax bill? And you've been in the business long enough to know that these things aren't done overnight, they're planned over years. Our capital projects are sequenced over years, so that we don't have to go to a referendum and ask for extra money, that we can try and live within a budgeted amount for the taxpayers at close to cost of living. And so part of this is a timing thing too. This was on the budget, the maintenance facility probably could have been done, justified from a falling apart standpoint 10 years ago. They've operated, moving things in and out, fixing and repairing and patching. And you come down to the whole thing, how long do you patch your car? They don't last forever. So at some point you gotta replace it. And do you just keep patching it forever? Or do you patch it for 10 years or 20 years? That's a judgment call as to your expense thing. I think we felt at this point, to continue to put patching it, and you talk about added value, the $1.5 million work that was gonna need to be done was not anything that people would notice if we spent that money. It was for fixing windows, coolers, internal roofing. It wouldn't add any value to that course at all, okay? And you'd have a brand new maintenance facility with an old building. You run into other problems when you just repair existing facilities. We've run into issues with Haddendorf because we got a free grant for $1 million 10, 15 years ago to put a roof on there for soundproofing. Thought it was a great idea, let's keep that building. And there's nothing wrong with it really, other than it's still outdated from the 60s. But a lot of things started to go wrong then. You had asbestos, you had heating, you had other things, windows we put into that. Large amounts of capitals to keep that building usable. So the trade-off is you get the value by repairing it and keeping it going and still having a used, outdated facility, or replace it with something newer and more efficient. So that's another aspect that we look at when we're doing it and trying to fit it into a timing schedule as to, what point to replace versus repair. And that's where we fell with the golf course at this point, so.
Yeah, and I'm coming back here only because I don't want you to think that I'm against spending money. I agree. You have to replace roofs. You have to replace carpet. You have to replace infrastructure. Maybe some of the design can be altered in the sense of the bar and the efficiencies and so on and so forth. The question, and I would even say, is could you do it for $2 million at a cost of $119,000, with the delta being the difference between 536 and 119? And yeah, you're right, you wouldn't get any value, but overall, how much value are you getting other than the fact you're walking into a new building and you may be able to serve a few more beers and you can do a little bit of golf simulator? I think you could do golf simulator in the winter right now. Well, I'm just saying, if all you're gonna do is golf simulate, and once again, is golf simulation gonna bring you in $2,553 a day? Or actually, it's not, it's the off-season rate of $489 a day, and so on and so forth. I go back and forth. I think you do have to reinvest. I mean, you've done a great job. You have to, I'm not against spending money, and I'm not against golf. I'm just saying that, do you have to spend that amount of money, and what are you gonna get for it? And that,
Okay.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay,
Can
we're
I just add one thing?
sure.
I appreciate the fact that you talked about Jack when he was executive director. He had great vision and all that, and being protective of the money. But this is one thing that always bothered me, and I'm just gonna say it because it's always bothered. It's one of the reasons I ran. Let's not forget, this ex-executive director took a consulting package that the board gave him that was a bunch of BS, but he accepted it on the taxpayer's dime, and then he took lifetime health insurance. And I thought that was just wrong. So if he was very protective of the money, he would have said, no, thank you. But he took it, so that's all I want to say on that.
Okay. Any
One last
court?
thing too. Gary, we did discuss the course, and some schematic designs and stuff at our committee of the whole. If you want copies of that, we can get you copies of that to go over. I do chair the golf committee, so if you have other things directly, please call me after you look it over. We're still in that finalizing the schematic design phase, so I would appreciate any other input you have directly on, it can bring you up to date as to where we're at with it. and, you can talk to me directly on that too.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And were you actively involved with the Seven Bridges and Poplar? I mean, where you did some of that stuff?
Yeah, the redesign of the golf course itself took it from a course that closed on quarter inch of rain to a course that never closes. Had a cost of $7 million. Done renovation of clubhouse there.
Well, that's the other thing we looked at too, is if we waited to another 10 years, what would the cost be then?
Yeah.
It might be cost prohibitive. Here, we have the money, we have it budgeted, we have it sequenced in our capitals. We can afford to do it at this point, I guess, I would say, with our other capitals that we have planned down the road. So, that was another piece that we looked at from a timing standpoint.
I trust your judgment.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Any other correspondence? Hearing, seeing none, we're at recommendations and acceptance for approval. Approval of the 2020 budget was presented at the December 12th, 2019 Committee of the Whole meeting. I need a motion and a second on that.
So moved.
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Biedke,
Yes.
Commissioner Sauter,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Malley,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes,
President Wells.
Yes. Approval of pay request for Williams Architect for professional services and schematic design phases for the golf course, clubhouse, and maintenance facility in the amount of $31,326.87.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sauter,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Malley,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
yes,
Commissioner Biedke,
Yes.
President Wells.
Yes. Approval of drug and alcohol policy update. I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Okay, second.
Do you just wanna let the public know what we're thinking on that?
Yeah, so obviously January 1st, the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act came into effect. So we're just updating our drug and alcohol policy to change some definitions as far as legal and illegal drugs and such.
Okay. So I need a roll call on that one, please, Kathy.
Commissioner O'Malley,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
yes,
Commissioner Biedke,
Yes.
Commissioner Sauter,
Yes.
President Wells.
Yes.
Oh,
Approval,
real quick, President Wells,
Sure.
I guess I would like to reiterate that we are still a drug-free workplace, and obviously, no employee would be under the influence or in possession of any type of legal or illegal drug at work.
well, see, I mean, the fact that you came in on that gets me to think, there's gonna be so many questions out there that nobody has an answer to. There's answers, but no one knows the answers.
Correct.
So for instance, do we treat it like tobacco or do we treat it like alcohol? Like, if I'm a patron, right, I'm not gonna walk in with a six-pack of beer to the pavilion. So if we treat it like alcohol, it means no, you can't come in the pavilion with that on you, with cannabis on you. If we treat it like tobacco, you can walk in with a pack of cigarettes or cigar in your pocket. So how do we do that?
So as far as our parks, so you cannot consume
Yeah, right.
marijuana at a park district facility, I believe.
Not even in the open space?
No, I believe the only places you're allowed to are in your personal residence.
Right. Now, you're talking about cannabis.
Correct.
Because currently our policy is, you can't smoke a cigar or cigarettes on Park District property.
And that is still in effect.
Correct.
Correct.
So are we treating cannabis the same way?
No, the state regulation says you can only consume it in your
Okay,
residence.
so we are treating it the same way.
Well, the state
The
is.
state.
We don't have to because the
Well,
state.
State is
It is,
dictating that you can only do it.
But I would
as a
just
person.
say, just so the public knows, like, that's
Yes,
what my point is.
correct, yes.
So,
So you cannot consume cannabis on Park District property.
I think his question was, can you carry it?
can you carry?
Can you carry it? That is, Mr. White went to training, and I believe you cannot possess it on property.
So I'm not picking on open gym, but it just came to my head, right?
But
So-
we don't have a policy of frisking people for.
No, that's not my point. What I'm saying is if we're gonna get it clear, let's get it clear. If a human being comes into open gym with a gym bag and they have cannabis in their bag, they are against our policy.
Yes,
Okay? I'm not saying here, there, or yes or no, I'm just saying, what is our policy?
Correct,
Okay,
I'm sure you like alcohol
yeah,
correct.
okay,
As far as our
policy.
policies, yes, it'll be
Right.
treated as like alcohol.
fair enough. Okay, sorry for this.
Nope.
Approval of the estimated cost of travel, meals, and lodging for 2020 IAPD/IPRA Annual Conference from January 23rd to January 25th, 2020, for Commissioner Cook at $534 and Commissioner O'Malley at $534. And I will need a motion in a second.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Ralph. Can I get a roll call, please, Kathy?
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Bianchi?
Yes.
Commissioner Sauter?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Malley?
Yes.
President Walls?
Yes. That brings us to items for information, leisure services update. We'll begin with Ben Kirsty.
You can combine that with my,
So we're gonna combine A and F.
thanks.
Sure, thank you.
So you can go on the PowerPoint.
Oh, you're done?
I'll
was
go
gonna get him
last.
at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, I got you. I thought you were gonna do, I thought F was moving up.
Oh, Right.
Was I the
I
only
can-
one in the
I can
room that
always
didn't
go
figure that
first.
out? Really?
Yeah.
I apologize.
You're the
He even threw an
president,
arrow.
you can change however you want.
yeah, you
No,
can,
no,
you can
that's-
ask me to
you are
go,
the
that's
president.
fine.
I'll admit being wrong once. Parks and Planning update, Tim White.
First update, the Park District is intending to apply for a park grant, which is a park and recreation facility construction grant to try to capitalize on other sources of financing for the Fox Run construction project. We intend to apply for $1 million grant. We had a public meeting soliciting input from the public on the design yesterday. We got a lot of really good feedback. We coincided the meeting with the Bags tournament to get some perspectives from other users other than golf. It being a multi-use facility went really well, and so I thank everybody who, Tom, thank you for your help and for letting us host that. Got two updates on park projects that are going on that people might have questions about. One first is at Johnson Park. Just to let residents know that the Integrated Lakes Management was contracted to do some cleanup around the stream that leads into the pond at Johnson Park. The project is not yet complete. There's just been some delays due to weather, so that cleanup isn't finished by any means. That will continue on. So it looks a little different than it did in the past, but it's not done. There's still brush cleanup and some additional seeding and blanketing that will take place at Johnson. And then Colony Park is a similar project. It's a native habitat restoration. It's a multi-year project. If you're a neighbor to Colony Park, you've received some things in the mail. But just as an update, there's been some more activity now that the ground is a little harder. Some equipment has come through and done a lot of cleanup. Again, seeding and blanketing around the creek has been done and will continue to be done. So if you see changes or you have questions, feel free to contact me regarding them. And we have, lastly, this is kind of a public service announcement, we have some firewood available to the public at the pavilion near the Pirates Cove entrance. The Park District routinely is taking down trees that are diseased or damaged, and we have a surplus of wood chips, so there's some season, it's dry, it's split, anybody wants it can take it.
Okay.
Come
all
get
I
our
got.
diseased wood.
Is that, just don't take it out of state.
It's good for burn, right.
And where is that again?
Entrance, so it's behind the pavilion, the entrance to Pirates Cove.
The
It's
back entrance
The
off
back
behind
entrance,
the building.
it's in wooden bins, it's pretty easy to spot.
And that's a, come and get it.
Come and get it, yep.
Okay. Any questions for Tim? Okay, golf operations, Tom Class.
January 9th today, and we're still open for play. Strange to say. We still had some good days out there where we had some decent play. Day after Christmas was, 50 degrees. We had 140 rounds out there that day. So, it's the end of the year. You're not going to do like you do in the summer. Obviously, the daylight's limited, but having some nice days and getting some play is definitely a bonus that time of year. Again, we'll keep it open based on weather. It's something we just evaluate on a daily basis based on conditions, playing conditions, and weather conditions. This time of year for us is mostly just getting things set up and ready for next year, rebooking outings, booking new outings, leagues, permanent tee times, looking at staffing needs, those types of things. Winter Bag League started yesterday. This will run through Wednesday nights through mid-March. And then we will have a one-day bags tournament as well on Friday, March 20th, for anyone that didn't want to do the league, that just wants to do the one day. Coincides with the March Madness basketball tournament, so it'll be on the Friday night out there at the golf course. New gaming promotion through Gold Rush that started in January. That'll run through the end of the month. Anytime you stop out at the facility, you can fill out an entry form for the raffle. End of the month, we pull a name out. That person gets a $100 check from Gold Rush, and then they are entered into the regular drawing, or the final drawing, which they're awarding 6 prizes from $25,000 down to $1,000.
Didn't we have a?
We've done 2. We've done, the Jeep one was in the fall, where they gave away 3 Jeeps, and then the Harley Davidson one was in the spring last year.
But didn't we have a patron of Fox Run actually get to that last?
Well, a
drawing?
patron will always get, one of our patrons will always get the $100 and get put into the final drawing.
Okay.
So, we've had, in the first 2 was, I don't know if you want me to say their names, but.
No. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we pull out a name at the end of the month,
Right.
January 31st, we'll pull out a name, and that person gets entered into the raffle. So all you gotta do is stop out at the golf course. You can enter 1 raffle a day, or 1 time a day for the whole month of January.
Okay. So, I believe Illinois state law changed on its gaming, as we know. Was that affecting Fox Run? Can we put in another machine?
Yeah, we got a
think
letter
we're
from the
gonna-
village saying that we can add a 6th machine. Right now, the space is, we don't have the space for the 6th machine unless we take out bar tables and stuff.
Because of the village rules on, there has
Yeah,
to be
we've
a
got 4 in
divider.
a separated room. We'd have to have a spot where we could have 2 and have it divided still from the general public.
Okay.
So we don't have that space right now. Ideally, yes, we would like to have that 6th machine. They do, looking at where we're at this year, we're up about 20% over last year on the gaming numbers. So
Okay.
Do you know if we're gonna have a space where we,
The new room would be able to accommodate the at least 6 machines.
No,
and
in the trailer?
And in the trailer?
could we?
Or the temporary? Yes, Gold Rush was out when we were meeting with Frank at the clubhouse. Actually, the rep was out. I talked to him briefly when we had our meeting the other day. We just have to, we need some finalized things from the temporary structure to be able to get approval from the village and then Gold Rush to make sure it works. There are some restrictions on what you have to have and security and things like that.
They pay for the install.
Correct. Gold Rush pays for any updates on the machines, any maintenance on the machines, or anytime if they're moved or something, they would take care of that expense.
Any other questions for Tom?
Yeah, with us going to 6 machines, and we brought it up at committee of the whole, if they go to 8 machines or 10 years from now, what size is the room? Can you put 10 machines? And I know it's a philosophical thing, we don't wanna be a mini casino and have 10 machines there, or maybe we do, since all the money stays at
Making
the
money.
golf course. But at the same time, so you have, the architect has drawn up the size of that room, so can you bring in more machines if gaming takes off and the restrictions change?
I mean, we'd have to look at the layout in there to see how many we could actually fit. I know it fits 6 with the with the redemption terminal, the way it's drawn. Some of it depends how close you want it to get. Right now, with 6 of them and having spacing, you can accommodate that. You know, right now, ours are right next to each other, you know, so.
When you say right now, do you mean the new building?
No,
That's
our
proposed,
current
or-
building now,
Current,
like if you
okay.
go in that gaming room, our
Yeah.
machines are boom, 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 stacked, like a casino, how they're stacked right next to
Right.
each other. Most of these places, when you go to like a Penny's or a Betty's or something, they've got a slot room where they're kind of spaced out, they've got some room for people to, where you're not
Yeah.
right on top, I'm watching what Ralph's doing. So,
Right.
The layout where it would be with the new building, there would be space between the machines. I guess if you wanted to, you could push those together and add more in. We'd have to just run some quick calculations to see how many we could, you know.
Well, they'll make a good,
Right.
It's the
you
same
made a
thing.
good point,
Right.
because if they went from 5 to 6 in 2
Correct.
years.
Well, there's those unknowns too. Are they gonna
And
allow
it's-
sports betting? Are they
Yeah.
gonna be off-track
And
terminal?
if none of us are sitting here on this board at the time and they go to 10 and that board thinks that
Correct.
they wanna get into the gambling business up to 10, should.
I just don't wanna be knocking down a wall and already
Right.
trying to retrofit something that, again, that's part of the why you're designing something that lasts 10 or 20 years.
Right.
Okay. Any
I
other
can run the
questions?
square footage on there with the numbers, just to give you some info there.
Any other questions for Tom? Business services update, Brad Scholes.
We just received word from GFOA, which is the Government Financial Officers Association, that we received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for 2018. So we're excited about that. We are hiring for the Director of Leisure Services. Interviews have begun. The Hort crew leader job was posted. And I believe they're in the process of hiring, what is it, turf specialist?
That's right, thanks, Brian.
Turf specialist. So that should be wrapped up, probably next week. As always, check our website for any job openings. That is all I have.
Any questions for Brad? Marketing communications, Kelly Carvin.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to start with some announcements for our athletic leagues regarding registration. This coming Saturday is going to be the last day for our early bird registration for house softball. And we will be open at the pavilion from 9 to 1 to accept any of those registrations. We also are currently, we have open registration right now for inline hockey as well as house baseball. So that is going on right now with that. And then with the temperature dropping, this is a great opportunity to join Pavilion Fitness. We have a special promotion going on there right now through January 13th called Degrees Equals Fees. So based on how cold it is outside, that is your enrollment fee through the 13th. So as the temperatures start to fall, this is a great opportunity to get over to the Pavilion Fitness Center and register.
If it's below zero, do you?
If it's below zero, we're not paying, but
come on,
it will
credit.
be free, yes.
Gift
That-
card.
We do have a disclaimer on that one, but thanks for bringing that to our attention, Tom. Commissioner Cook. And then,
And it's Fahrenheit, right?
yes, yes, and it's according to weather.com. So we are using that at 5 a.m., so we're checking that.
It's a break.
So preschool open house, we have on January 23rd from 6:30 to 7:30. If you've seen any of the green yard signs out in the community, we're promoting our open house for preschool over at the Hattendorf building. We will be doing a registration on February 1st for residents, and that's a lottery process. It begins at noon with the registration starting at 12:30. And then on February 10th will be open registration for non-residents. Again, that will be taking place at the Hattendorf. We also have one of our most anticipated events every year coming up on February 7th, and that is our daddy-daughter date night, and the registration deadline for that is January 31st, so that would be an important date to put on your calendars, and that's coming back to the Garden Terrace at the Pavilion. So that's a very popular night, February 7th from 5:30 to 7:30. And last but not least, tomorrow we're very excited to roll out a project that we've been working on for about 8 months, and that is our new design of our elkgroveparks.org website. So that should be, yes, that was quite a project, but we're really proud of the new design, and we hope that everyone that uses it finds it most efficient and easy to navigate and find the programs and the parks that you're looking for. So, does anybody have any questions?
Okay, hearing seeing none. We go to Ben Curcio for rec and
For
executive.
one large update, so if you missed New Year's Eve, we made the paper, which is kinda cool. We had a New Year's Eve party, which is our annual event. We had over almost, I wanna say 1,000 tickets, close to up to 1,000 people came. It's a really cool event, and we got a nice publicity and adjournment for that. So I just wanna say thank you to Ashley, her staff, all the volunteers, all the staff that were there. It was a great event, and people had a lot of fun, and reining in the new year. So that concludes my update.
For both?
Yeah.
I think I stole his thunder.
Yeah, you know, 4 directors, it's kind of.
With all that weight, it just, thought it'd be more. Any old business?
I didn't want to tie it into Kelly's thing, but one thing I want to get away from, I think we ran some specials at the fitness center. It's great when you roll back the no enrollment. That's accurate. You can look at it. But I did see a flyer there, and this is where I get a little bit perturbed, where we're just a tad misleading, where it said something like, enroll for 1 month at $44, you know, at half off or something like that, regular priced $85 a month. And I think I have the flyer on my desk, but it was stationed right on top of the fitness center. We don't charge $85 a month, so let's just be honest with the people, and whatever our price is that we're gonna run a special on, let's just say what that price is, but we almost acted like we were giving people a 50% off, and it was just misleading. Nobody pays $80 a month at our fitness center, and that's what this flyer said.
Was that recently?
Yes, within the last month and a half. So I'll show you,
Yeah.
but it's my job to point out to the general public that if we're doing something misleading, I'm gonna call it out, and it wasn't accurate. So we can't do that as a
Not
park
aware of
district.
that, Kelly.
I'll show it.
Yeah, I'd like to see it
Yeah.
because that, I don't believe was,
You're right. That's all.
yeah, I don't
And we'll
remember
talk
seeing
about
that
it
flyer.
at another time, but.
Okay, any other old business that was? Okay, new business? Hearing, seeing none. Oh no, I'm sorry, I do have new business. Apologize. Notification of tentative budget and appropriation ordinance on display at Elk Grove Park District Administration Building, 499 Bysterfield Road in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. So there's your notification. I'm at adoption of resolution 20-1, a resolution authorizing the submittal of the Park and Recreational Facility Construction, or PARK grant, for the Fox Run building renovation. And this is what, Tim, you talked about in your report, correct?
That's correct, so I'll need,
You can get it after the meeting.
okay.
Yeah, signatures and whatnot. Let's see if it goes. A motion and a second?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bianchi?
Yes.
Commissioner Sauer?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Malley?
Yes, and good luck.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
President Wall?
Yes. So, yeah, I can, I'll get the, payment of the
Thank
bills.
you real quick, John.
Yeah.
Because I think you mentioned it yesterday, Ben. I still think it's important. I think you were gonna do it. But again, we've gotta get as many legislators behind that as possible. I know that, wanna play the political process again, but we need for them to champion that dollar amount. It's one thing if you don't catch $100,000. I mean, we'd love to get $100,000 grant for the Hattendorf, but when you're putting in for 7 digits, you gotta get Mussman and Moyland and Murphy. I mean, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts. They gotta get behind it, even if we have to, bang the doors.
So I talked to the DNR grant office about that because the OSLAD and the park grants are very similar, but there's not a letters of support section of the park grant. If I can get them on time, I will. I'll certainly give it a shot and I'll include them because it wouldn't hurt. But it's not, I don't think it's a fact.
Well, they
it's
can
a larger
we can even
factor.
have them work the back channels because they're down there in Springfield for us, so.
Okay.
Because certain towns seem to be getting certain grants and, maybe their projects are better than ours or hit all the actual points that you need to accumulate to get a green light on a project. But looking at some of the other park districts in the area, a couple of years in a row, I'm like, how do they get it? And we're not getting anything, that's all.
Anything else for Tim? Okay. So we're good on 9B, right? So we're moving on to payment of the bills, that's right. Okay, payment of the bills, December 11th, 2019 P cards in the amount of $114,985.27. December 12th, 2019 in the amount of $125,633.97. December 19th, 2019 in the amount of $142,293.27. And then January 2nd, 2020 in the amount of $163,574.44.
So moved as presented.
Second.
Can I get a roll call, please, Kid?
Commissioner Sauer?
Yep.
Commissioner O'Malley?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Bianchi?
Yes.
President Wall?
Yes. Okay, I need a motion and a second to adjourn to closed session for the purpose of discussing the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body per 2C5.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner O'Malley?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Bianchi?
Yes.
Commissioner Sauer?
Yep.
President Wong?
Yes, we are adjourned.